Clay Travis is with us now, founder of Outkick at Clay Travis on Twitter. He's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. What's up, Clay? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are y'all?
Awesome. Thanks a lot. You made the point you felt like Tennessee was closer to a 1 seed than a 3 seed. And you were not alone in saying that, yet they end up as a 3. I've heard the phrase criminally underseeded before when talking about the NCAA tournament. I'm assuming you think this falls in that category.
I think so. I mean, if you look at the overall body of work in the SEC in general, Tennessee finished 17-4, which is the best record pretty substantially in the entirety of the SEC. Again, looking at all the games, they were 2-1 against Kentucky. 3-1 against Kentucky and Auburn. They beat Kentucky twice. They beat Auburn once, lost once to Kentucky. They also were able pretty comfortably they didn't lose a single bad game meaning to an inferior opponent, outside of the quartile 1, as they say it. And they also beat Arizona. So if you look at that overall resume, I mean, Arizona, I think, was the number 2 overall number 1 seed. And then you look at 3-1 against Kentucky and Auburn, with the best record in the SEC. I don't understand how they weren't seeded above Kentucky and Auburn and Duke, if you look at those overall resumes. So I think the committee basically made their decisions, and that's why I think it should be looked at. I think the committee made their decision before the conference tournaments were actually played. And because, the other crazy thing is, if you remember, and by the way, I'm driving to my studio here, so if you hear that a little bit in the background.
Are you in like a Flintstone car where you're pedaling the car too? You're a little out of breath.
I'm coming down the stairs here to make sure I'm at the beach, by the way.
The Flintstone
spring break week.
We love you either way, man. We're just happy to have you every week.
And so that is pretty ridiculous, I think. So I think they should have to explain how they rendered the verdicts that they did in terms of seeding. I think the data all reflects, and I think it's pretty clear, that Tennessee should have been, at a minimum, the top number 2 seed. And if they hadn't been the top number 2 seed, I think they could have been the final number 1 seed. And I'll put it to you this way. If Duke or Kentucky had the exact same resume as Tennessee, they would have been a 1 seed. And Tennessee got the 3, which makes it feel, to a large extent to me anyway, as if this is based on the name on the front of the jersey. I mean, and again, I think it's because the committee had already seeded everything and already kind of put it in place before they even got to the games, right, of the conference tournaments.
Well, just like last year, Gonzaga favored to win this thing again. And there are some people out there that are saying Mark Few can't win the big game, which is hilarious to me. I would ask you this, Clay. He's played for 2 national championships in 4 years. Has there ever been a better mid-major job done on any level? I mean, when you talk about football, Chris Peterson did a great job at Boise. Fickle's doing one at Cincinnati. I know Cal State Fullerton.
Brad Stevens at Butler, you'd have to put him in there.
Yeah, Brad Stevens would be in the mix. But, I mean, what Few's been able to maintain at Gonzaga, I don't think this will ever be matched.
Well, it's interesting because I think the only way you would top what Few has done is you could point to mid-majors that were so successful they became majors, right? So TCU, for instance, Gary Patterson, I think is wildly underrated. But to go into the Big 12, and we can argue about what the future of the Big 12 is going to be, but those guys who elevated their programs into elite level, I think deserve a substantial amount of praise there. Another one back in the day would be Georgetown, who John Thompson took from, sort of a sleepy, small Catholic Jesuit school in the D.C. area into an elite academic institution that also ended up being in the Big East, right? With no real substantial history of dominance, went and got Patrick Ewing and everything changed for that school. So I think those are the kind of analogies you would have to make. I think you'd have to pick guys who took mid-major programs and helped to elevate them into becoming major programs. I mean, heck, Bobby Bowden back in the day at Florida State. I'm down here on the Gulf Coast. I mean, how much did Florida State matter before Bobby Bowden? I think those are the kind of guys that you would have to grab onto and kind of use as comparisons to Mark Few.
I don't remember ever talking to you about wrestling back in the day in the heyday of WWF and WWE. I don't know if you were a wrestling guy, but I know you love good marketing. Scott Hall passes away at the age of 63. He was the guy that came up with the NWO back in the big wrestling days. What a brilliant idea. I wasn't a wrestling guy, but when that was going on, it drew me in because of the storylines and Hulk making the flip to the NWO at one point. Did you appreciate wrestling ever back in your day, your younger days?
Oh, I was a monster wrestling fan back in the day. Now, a lot of that, 1980s era wrestling, more in early 90s, which is when those guys kind of had their heyday. And then I kind of come back into it because my boys were really interested in WWE wrestling. And my wife grew up a huge WWE. I still think of it as WWF. But my wife grew up a huge WWF fan, too. I mean, she was in the Pontiac Silverdome as a little kid for the WrestleMania that was taking place there that was, sold out the Pontiac Silverdome with Hulk Hogan and all of that and the Andre the Giant match, back in those days. So, I was a monster. I mean, I used to go to the local wrestling matches in Nashville when I was a kid growing up. And so I had the, wrestling figures and all of that. And I've always thought they've done a fantastic job of telling stories and appealing to a wide, variety of people of all different backgrounds. I've always thought that they are. I'm a WWE shareholder now, so I still pay attention to what's going on.
Clay, those were legendary matches, but could anybody top what you tweeted out yesterday, Elon Musk and Vladimir Putin? I mean, how legitimate is this, and can we get this thing done? And by the way, Putin would kill him, literally kill him.
Oh, you think so?
I don't know how big Putin is. How big is Putin?
I don't care. Putin is a trained killer.
Would that be a spectacular way though for Elon Musk to go out?
Yeah.
How many people would watch that if they actually had, like a battle? I mean, it's like Game of Thrones style, right? A trial by combat.
Oh, if it was Mountain versus Red Viper, I'd pay $500 for it.
Oh, I mean, it would be incredible. And also, by the way, I like the idea of, everybody talks about nuclear war and everything else. I think the concept of finding the baddest ass person in your country and putting them head to head against the baddest ass person from another country. But by the way, can you imagine all the drug testing and all the cheating and everything else that would go into it if we had an actual, Rocky, but it's Game of Thrones style, but except it was to the death, right? Like, trial by combat, instead of having to mobilize armies and threaten to bomb everybody with nuclear weapons. If we just had two guys going head to head like that.
Putin's only 5'7". I know you say he's a trained
I don't care. I mean, where do you think, Clay? I mean, and how legitimate was Elon Musk on this? I mean, I know it was all about getting more, pub and things like that, but I mean, he legitimately said, "Hey, let's meet in the streets," right?
Well, I mean, yeah, Putin is. First of all, he's like 70, right?
Yeah, he's 69 and he's 5'7". Musk is at least 6'2". I mean, Musk has got him.
So I'm 42 and I'm 6 foot. What would the line be on me versus Putin?
Putin would kill you, and it'd be quick.
Yeah.
Yep.
You think just because he's a trained assassin?
Yeah, I mean, look, and he doesn't have the strength anymore.
He's a former KGB agent.
Yeah, I mean, but it's one of those things. It would be within like 90 seconds. I mean, he's got that skill set.
Yeah, I don't know whether Elon Musk, he's never struck me, like some of those rich guys, like, get into MMA or whatever and, like roll around on the mat and do Brazilian jiu-jitsu and all that stuff. Like, I mean, I also don't know, like, obviously if you're fighting to death, I mean, I'm assuming it's you got a little bit of time to train. Do you get, like, how much of, for instance, the Hoist Gracie, put people to sleep back in the day? Like, could you pick up if you just went all you did, right? If you just focused 100% on, combat and, there's no, like, you're just combating using your hands, right? So how much better could you get training in that stuff? It would be kind of fascinating.
Yeah,
right?
but you think about the mindset. I mean, Putin would be fearless going into that. And think about how nervous you would be, especially like a Musk.
The way you win is by putting a submission hold on somebody, though, right? Like you're unlikely. I mean, I guess if you caught somebody with a punch and knocked them out, then you could just. I mean, that's why it's so violent to think about. Like once they're knocked out, like what do? Just like choke them to death? Like it's like really kind of gross, right? So I tend to think it would be a submission hold. And instead of, when somebody goes to sleep, they tap out, they stop the match in the UFC or whatever, I guess you'd basically get sleeper hold to death, right? Which I would be like 100% certain that's probably the way this thing would end.
Yeah, I mean, to Rockstar's point, Putin is former KGB, and he's probably legit crazy right now. So that's a weird combo, like crazy trained killer.
5'7". I think, isn't Elon Musk like 6'3"?
That's what I'm saying. No, Musk is 6'2", and Putin's 5'7". So, I mean, you got a big size differential, but trained killer.
Yeah, but Greg from Succession 6'6". I mean, size can only get you so far.
Yeah, I would not like Greg from Succession's odds to win. I think it would be amazing, like to think about it. And by the way, I mean, that would be a huge loss for the world, because think about all the things that Elon Musk has actually done. I mean, what is he going to accomplish in the next 40 years of his life? I mean, how old is Elon Musk? He's like 44, 45, right?
Yeah, I'll have to go back on that one.
And
I'm
by
on
the way,
Putin's page.
Underrated. Elon Musk has got 7 kids now. I mean, he may end up having 15 kids before all is said and done.
Well, yeah, I mean, that trust me, they all have plenty of money.
Yeah, does he have a nanny, you think?
Yeah, I think he's probably got enough resources to take care of all of them.
Do they call that muskrat love?
Oh,
in all honesty, I mean, we should probably want Elon Musk to have as many kids as possible, because that otherwise that $200 billion he's got or whatever it is, you at least can distribute it to 20 kids as opposed to 2 or 3.
All right, so Elon's 50. He does have.
Oh, I didn't realize he was.
Yeah,
50.
I didn't either.
Okay,
I thought he was younger than that. Yeah, he does have 2 exes, and I bet they do okay.
Yeah,
I bet they've done okay in the divorce alimony.
Yeah.
Alimony proceedings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what the formula would be on alimony when you make $200 billion. I can't even imagine what you get paid. I think it taps out at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a ceiling on this deal. I mean, at some point.
Yeah.
All right, he is Clay Travis, at Clay Travis on Twitter, founder of Outkick. You can read him there. And CMO Fox. Clay, thank you for the time. Have a great week.
All right, y'all too.
All right, see you, Clay, with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.